The summit chamber of the Galactic Concorde shimmered with cold elegance. It was a circular expanse the size of a small stadium, walls veined with shimmering blue light, the ceiling a dome of transparent crystal that framed the slow-burning death of a nearby star. Delegates of 100 species gathered in concentric tiers, each arranged by social rank, power, or sheer ego. There was a particular scent in the air, a mix of ozone, arrogance, and ceremonial incense. The galaxy had gathered to welcome Earth. Sort of. At the center stood a slender podium, surrounded by floating translation drones. The air shimmered with the buzz of pre-speech whispers, diplomatic tail flicks, and political grooming rituals. Aliens from every spiral arm reclined, preened, or pulsed with amusement as Earth's representative finally entered the chamber. She walked in alone. Ambassador Evelyn Sharp moved with the kind of deliberate calm that only people deeply underestimated could perfect. A navy blue pantsuit hugged her neatly. In one hand, she carried a leather folder, in the other, a ceramic mug with faded red letters that read, "World's okayest diplomat." A few heads tilted in confusion. The coffee steam curled upward like a dare. The Zyrex clicked first, their mandibles rattling in unison. They were insectoid, crystalline, brilliant, and insufferably smug. "Ah, Earth's envoy arrives," the chief Zyrex said, projecting its voice through a translator that rendered it like a sarcastic librarian. "We were beginning to think you'd gotten lost. Or frightened." Evelyn gave a smile that fell just short of friendly. "Sorry for the delay. Our shuttle had to circle 3 times while someone parallel parked a battleship in orbit." A ripple of low chuckles, nervous and amused, spread through the chamber. The Zyrex's antennae twitched in mild offense. A bulbous blue entity to her right, Consul Ruvex of the Swell Confederation, bubbled a laugh. "Oh, she's charming. They really do speak like entertainment programs." "We aim to please," Evelyn replied. "And survive." She moved to the center podium, adjusted the mic, and surveyed the room. Her face was carefully composed, but her eyes, those sharp gray eyes, swept the crowd like a surveyor calculating structural weak points. "Esteemed delegates," she began, her tone breezy but firm. "On behalf of the people of Earth, thank you for inviting us to join this vibrant discussion of galactic cooperation. We're honored to be here. Even if our species is still figuring out whether interstellar community is more like a potluck or a poker game." Murmurs. A few of the elder species raised frilled eyebrows, or nearest equivalent. "Your presence is unexpected," rumbled the Threx warlord general, a mountain of scaled muscle in ceremonial armor. "We had assumed your kind would require another century to evolve language fit for diplomacy." "Technically," Evelyn said with a wink, "our species has more languages than your empire has ships, but we decided on English today. It's the one most often used when delivering bad news politely." The chamber paused. Not in shock. In calculation. Several delegates took sudden interest. "Is Earth here to threaten us?" asked the Kothari archivist, a serpentine being wrapped in ceremonial silk. "Or entertain us?" "We prefer entertaining threats," Evelyn answered, casually flipping open her folder. "But today is just a meet and greet." She placed the folder down. Behind her, a hologram blinked into life. Earth. Its blue oceans and brown-green continents revolved slowly, ringed by tiny dots representing satellite constellations and orbital defense platforms. She zoomed in. A clip began playing. Surf. Laughter. People on beaches. Then it cut. Military drills. Soldiers running. A boxing match. A rocket launch. A courtroom debate so heated it required gavel intervention. And then, sharks. Lots of them. Fast cuts. Humans jumping into icy water, fighting in organized arenas, yelling at cooking competitions, dancing in protests, and playing contact sports with reckless joy. The footage ended. Silence. A delegate from the Aerolox Collective blinked all 4 eyes slowly. "You find violence entertaining?" "Only when we win," Evelyn replied, sipping her coffee. The Zyrex muttered something in their native clicks. The translator hesitated before interpreting. "Primitive. Desperate for attention." A bipedal sitcom. Not desperate, Evelyn said brightly. Just underestimated. The Threx leaned forward, his nostrils flaring. We encountered your species once. Border incident. Small skirmish. A few of your Marines surrendered. Evelyn did not blink. Yes. We were told a diplomatic inquiry was still open regarding that. The Threx grinned, sharp teeth glinting. They did not last long. Human spirit, it seems, breaks quickly. A hush. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, almost with curiosity. That's interesting, she said. Because they weren't supposed to break. They were supposed to stall. The Threx's grin faltered. She continued, her voice calm, conversational. You see, those Marines knew what you do. You always do the same thing with prisoners. So, they volunteered. Gave you exactly what you expected. You killed them. A long pause. But that was part of the mission. Delegates exchanged nervous glances. Evelyn smiled again, gently now. It's fascinating, really. How quickly the galaxy assumes that because humans laugh, we must be soft. Because we cry, we must be weak. But really, we just feel things loudly. Doesn't mean we don't calculate. Doesn't mean we don't remember. The Zyrex coughed, or maybe short-circuited. You're implying sacrifice. You mean to say your people allow themselves to be killed, as a tactic? Evelyn turned toward him, her tone still light. Well, we've been playing chess for centuries. Sometimes you trade pawns for position. The real fun begins once the queen is in play. The chamber went deathly quiet. Then the Cathari whispered. But why would you come here then? Why sit among us, knowing what was done? Evelyn's voice dropped to something softer. Not colder. Not yet. Just clearer. Because we wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt. We thought, maybe it was a mistake. That perhaps your customs were unfamiliar with the concept of mercy. She took another sip. The mug clinked gently against her teeth. But now that you've admitted it, publicly on record, she set the cup down. I suppose we'll have to proceed accordingly. What does that mean? Asked a delegate from the Oloran cluster, voice rising with tension. It means, Evelyn said with her brightest, most Midwestern smile, that Earth will be submitting formal documentation to the Concord Council requesting a tribunal for war crimes. Effective immediately. The room erupted. The Threx roared. The Zyrex flailed. The smaller races panicked. Only a few remained still, those wise enough to be afraid. Evelyn turned slowly, gathering her folder. The mug. She tapped something on a sleek black wrist device. Of course, Earth is peaceful, she said over the rising din. We love peace. We write songs about it. But history shows. Peace only works when everyone at the table knows what happens if you flip it. The Cathari leaned in, whispering. This is a trap? No, Evelyn said. This is a test. She stepped off the platform as behind her, the projection shifted again, this time showing not beaches, but ships. Fleets. Stealthed. Cloaked. Moving. The diplomatic chamber had no doors to slam, but somehow, her footsteps leaving it still echoed. The moment she was gone, no one laughed. Not even the Zyrex. They didn't know it yet, but the galaxy had just heard its first polite declaration of war. And Earth was smiling. The aftermath of Ambassador Evelyn Sharp's declaration resounded through the Galactic Concord like the echo of a dropped blade. No one wanted to be the first to move, speak, or even shift their weight in the wake of her calm, courteous threat. She'd walked out of the chamber like someone leaving a parent-teacher conference, but the weight behind her words lingered like smoke after an electrical fire. 3 hours later, the first communique came in. Not from Earth. From the Threx Dominion. It wasn't an apology. It was a blockade. 2 Threx warcruisers and a patrol flotilla encircled an Earth research outpost on the edge of neutral space, a modest orbital station above the mineral-rich moon Vanta 12. Population: 218 scientists, mostly civilian. Armed presence: minimal. The message broadcast to the Galactic Council was clipped, terse, and rich with old warrior pride. The Threx warlord, General Akaroth, declared the action, a show of containment to preserve interspecies harmony. Evelyn received the news while lounging in the Earth Embassy's private lounge, a glass cube tucked into one of the quieter orbital spires of the Concorde station. The decor inside was minimal, clean. Beige sofas, glass-top tables, the faint hum of gravity regulators. A small flag of Earth hung behind the main desk, next to a dusty Keurig machine that no one dared remove, lest it trigger some obscure diplomatic clause. She didn't flinch when the feed came in. She was stirring honey into her tea. She had the air of someone halfway through a crossword. "Containment," she said softly, tasting the word. "Interesting choice." Her assistant, a young tactical analyst named Reza, stood by with a tablet in hand, and a worried look etched deep across his brow. "The Council's in emergency session. They're trying to de-escalate. The Threx claim the blockade is temporary. They always claim that." She sipped her tea. "Have the civilians been evacuated?" "They're refusing evacuation," Reza said. "Apparently they've taken it as a matter of pride." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Ah. Scientists. The deadliest kind of stubborn." He hesitated. "Ma'am, what's the move?" She set her cup down. "We don't make the first move. Not yet. That would make us look emotional. Didn't they already kill our Marines? Now they're threatening civilians." "They're giving us rope, Reza," she said, standing. "We just have to decide what to hang them with." When she returned to the Concorde chamber, she did so with the same smile, the same easy walk. The delegates had adjusted their posture since the last session. Fewer smug smirks. More watchful eyes. Her coffee mug had been upgraded to a sleek thermal flask with "Be nice, or else" written on the side in looping cursive. The room quieted as she stepped into the ring. "Ambassador Sharp," the Xyrix delegate said without his usual sneer. "Do you have a response to the Dominion's disciplinary action?" "I do," she replied, pleasant as ever. "Earth would like to thank the Dominion for this useful case study in overreaction and poor judgment. Our behavioral scientists will be thrilled." Akaroth, hulking in ceremonial armor, loomed over his half of the dais. "Your tone is ill-advised. Earth's position in the Concorde is tenuous. Provocation will not serve you." Evelyn blinked once. "General, I find it curious that you confuse my existence with provocation. Earth did not blockade your people. Earth did not execute your prisoners. Earth did not wander into neutral space waving guns and metaphors. You accuse us of war crimes." "You confessed," she corrected. "Publicly. On record. To quote your own words, they didn't last long. That's either murder or incompetence, and I'd be happy to let the Council debate which is worse." The Xyrix shifted in his seat. "Surely we can resolve this matter without escalation." "Oh, we agree," Evelyn said brightly. "In fact, Earth has already submitted a formal de-escalation protocol. It includes a timeline for the withdrawal of Threx forces from Vanta 12, reparations for the families of our Marines, and a very polite apology from General Akaroth personally, on video ideally, wearing one of those novelty apology hats with bells on it." The chamber broke into murmurs again. The Threx general snarled. "You would humiliate us?" "No," Evelyn said, her smile softening. "You already did that. We're just helping it go viral." Her expression sharpened, almost imperceptibly. "But if you insist on staying at Vanta 12, we do have a contingency." Akaroth laughed, a deep warthog-like rumble that shook his breastplate. "What contingency could your pathetic species possibly offer?" Evelyn raised a hand, tapping the comm embedded in her bracelet. "Reza." A new hologram blinked into view. It was the Vanta 12 research station, still operational, still intact. But surrounding it now was a new formation. Ships. Silent, triangular, matte black, impossible to detect by normal scans. They weren't war cruisers. They were ghosts. And they were waiting. "We call this operation Grizzly Hug," Evelyn said gently. "Because it's very warm, right until it crushes you." The room erupted. Council members stood. Some barked into translators. Others demanded security oversight. The Zyrex called for a recess. The Cathari historian just stared in awed silence. Impossible, Akaroth barked. You had no ships in range. We had no visible ships in range, Evelyn said. Our official records stated that because, well, we're polite. And strategic. And very, very tired of being underestimated. The feed shifted. A message had been transmitted from one of the cloaked ships to the Threx blockade line. It was text. Simple. White on black. We're smiling because you still have time to leave. Akaroth looked to the Zyrex. The Zyrex looked to the Council. Evelyn looked at her watch. I give it 6 hours before the Threx retreat, she said to no one in particular. Pride tends to fold around the 5-hour mark, but he looks stubborn. The Cathari leaned forward. This was planned. Evelyn turned toward them, and for the first time, her tone dropped the friendliness entirely. Yes. Of course it was. They stared. You thought we came here to join your Galactic book club? She asked, suddenly sharper than anyone had ever heard her. We came because you murdered our people and didn't even bother to lie about it. You expected us to roll over because we still say please before retaliation. That was your mistake. A flicker of movement at the far end of the chamber. A new signal had come in. A live feed from the Threx command ship at Vanta 12. On screen, General Akaroth's second-in-command was sweating? Or the Threx equivalent. His neck frills drooped, his jaw muscles twitching. Dominion forces are withdrawing, the aide announced. The entire Concord held its breath. Then Evelyn turned, smoothed her jacket, and tapped her comm again. Reza, cancel the fireworks. Looks like they passed the test. The feed cut. Evelyn turned back to the chamber, her smile fully restored. So, shall we talk reparations now? There was no applause. Just silence. The kind that spreads when something fundamental has changed in the room, and no one knows yet what the new rules are. A few of the minor powers looked to one another nervously. The Zyrex looked positively nauseated. The Threx said nothing. Later in the embassy, Reza approached her with a mix of awe and anxiety still curdled in his eyes. They're scared of us now, he said. Truly scared. Good, Evelyn said, not looking up from her tablet. Ma'am, you don't think we're overplaying it? She did look up now. And when she did, her expression wasn't stern. It was something gentler. Sad, even. Just for a moment. Reza, she said. Do you know how many species we studied before we came here? Dozens. No, she said. Hundreds. Thousands. We spent 20 years collecting data. Observing. Listening. Every species in this council has a pattern. A tell. When they lie. When they bluff. When they plan to conquer. But none of them have what we do. He hesitated. What's that? Imagination, she said. We plan like predators but dream like poets. We can picture what victory looks like before we even touch the battlefield. That makes us the most dangerous creatures in the room, because we don't fight to win. We fight to make sure we never have to fight again. She paused. And we smile the whole time, because that's the part that really scares them. Outside the embassy, the Galactic Concord was already shifting. Emergency sessions had turned into private meetings. Fleets were repositioned. Treaties revisited. Every species, large or small, had just witnessed something that didn't make sense, and that's what terrified them. Earth didn't act like an empire. Didn't posture. Didn't invade. But it could. It absolutely could. And now, they knew it. In a darkened viewing room, a silent delegation of 5 watched Evelyn's confrontation on replay. The footage paused on her face as she delivered her final line. The 5 delegates, members of the enigmatic Council of Strategic Species, said nothing for a long moment. Then one of them, a willowy being made entirely of shifting gases, finally whispered. The humans are no longer playing. A second, glistening with bioluminescence, added. They never were. They were just waiting. The lights dimmed. The silence deepened. Earth was no longer a curiosity. It was a problem. And that problem was smiling. The Threx retreat from Vanta. 12 sent aftershocks through every corridor of power across the spiral arms. It wasn't just that Earth had repelled a blockade. It was how. Silently. Surgically. With invisible ships and visible restraint. No casualties, no reprisals, just a warning delivered with clinical precision, and a smile that refused to fade. For species raised on escalation, this restraint was not calming. It was terrifying. In the days that followed, the Galactic Concord shifted from mockery to morbid curiosity. Earth had become the ghost at the diplomatic feast, politely declining the main course but memorizing every seating arrangement. Evelyn Sharp's schedule flooded with back-channel invitations, non-committal trade feelers, and offers for cultural exchanges, which mostly amounted to intel fishing disguised as tea ceremonies. She accepted none. Instead, she scheduled a single, formal address. Public. Recorded. Mandatory attendance for all Concord delegates. The chamber filled with representatives bearing more anxiety than authority. Evelyn stood alone at the podium. No aides this time, no folder, no mug. Her outfit was unchanged, but the room saw it differently now, like the uniform of a soldier who didn't need armor. "Esteemed members of the Concord," she began, her voice crisp. "Earth would like to formally update its status in this council. Not as an applicant. Not as a junior partner. As a strategic equal." The room stiffened. "This is not a request," she continued. "It is a recognition of fact. In the last 10 years, Earth has established listening posts in every quadrant. We have mapped wormholes your cartographers missed. We cracked your encryption standards before our application was even reviewed." The Cathari archivist blinked rapidly, frills twitching. "And yes," Evelyn said, pacing now, "we knew about the Dominion's practice of disciplinary disappearance. We knew the Zyrex were supplying disruptor tech to both sides of a border dispute. We knew the Council of Five had been bribed by the Kellery Mining Guild to deny us access to neutral corridors." Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. But we chose patience. We chose observation. Because that is what humans do before they strike. We watch. We wait. We learn your tells, your truths, and your weaknesses. She stopped. "And we give you one chance to be better." No one spoke. Even the Zyrex remained still, their mandibles locked in silence. Then Evelyn smiled. "But if that chance is wasted, we don't negotiate. We correct." At that exact moment, screens flared to life across the chamber. Surveillance feeds. Dozens of them. Real-time footage. Hidden listening devices catching snippets of conspiracies. Weapons smuggling on planetary freighters. Shadow packs. Rigged votes. Every one of them time-stamped, geo-marked, and authenticated. "This is not blackmail," she said. "This is transparency." The silence that followed was not shocked, it was stunned. The kind of stillness that exists between the pluck of a violin string and the moment it vibrates. "We do not desire conquest," Evelyn added, softer now. "But Earth will never again allow itself to be humiliated, hunted, or erased. Not by accident. Not by policy. Not by tradition." From the far right of the chamber, Admiral Solren of the Vargothi fleet, once a respected voice of strategic theory, rose. "You threaten us with knowledge." "I warn you with precedent," Evelyn said. "You killed 12 of our people. That's not a statistic to us. That's 12 funerals. 12 families. 12 reasons to make sure no one ever thinks of trying it again." A low voice hissed from the back, filtered through a translator. "You call yourselves peaceful." "We are," she answered. "But that's just one of the tools in the box. You're now seeing the rest." Later that evening, in the Earth Embassy's command briefing room, the lights were dimmed to match Evelyn's expression. She stood before a holo display of active military deployments. Dozens of red dots blinked across Concord space, each representing a hidden unit, a cloaked drone, a listening node. Reza entered cautiously. "You did it," he said, holding a fresh report. "You dropped the mask." "No," Evelyn replied. I let them see the seams. The mask stays on. He handed her the tablet. You should read this. She scanned it silently. The document was stamped with the sigil of the Dominion, the Threx's highest council. It was a formal withdrawal from all disputed zones, a request for moderated negotiations, and, most notably, a full surrender of all internal files related to POW operations. A small line at the bottom caught her eye. One word. Repentance. She didn't smile. Not this time. Reza glanced at her. So what now? We tighten the noose, she said. Gently. Graciously. And we remind the rest of the galaxy that Earth isn't here for revenge. He frowned. Then what are we here for? Evelyn looked up from the screen. To remind them what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. A week later, the Zyrex invited Evelyn to a private dialogue. A last-ditch attempt to recapture their narrative. Their diplomatic vessel was a marvel of function over form. A lattice of glassy hexagons, each panel flickering with internal chemical pulses that acted as both light source and mood indicator. Inside, everything smelled faintly of disinfectant and burning sugar. The Zyrex delegation greeted her with clipped bows and forced civility. Ambassador Sharp. We regret our earlier tone and recognize Earth's underestimated capabilities. Thank you, she said pleasantly. I regret your tone as well. They offered her a seat, then launched into a stream of flattery, obfuscation, and self-exoneration. Evelyn let it flow like wind against stone. Finally, one Zyrex dared to pivot. Would Earth consider an alliance? She blinked. With you? He nodded. We are positioned to influence policy. Guide reforms. We could shape the council together. She tilted her head, considering it like a parent considering giving a toddler a loaded firearm. You think because we have claws, we want to scratch? The Zyrex stiffened. We don't want to rule you, Evelyn continued. We want to retrain you. Like you would a dog who keeps biting guests. One of the Zyrex hissed involuntarily. Another stood, rage trembling through its frame. We offer our pride, he snapped. Our status. That's not nothing. It is if it's fake, she said, rising. Don't offer what you never owned. As she left, she passed a wall where dozens of smaller Zyrex watched silently from translucent hives. Youths, cadets, lower castes. One of them tilted its head, eyes wide. Are all humans like you? It asked. Evelyn paused, then smiled softly. No, she said. I'm one of the nice ones. Outside the vessel, her ship waited, orbiting silently among others no one had seen arrive. Back in Concord space, new whispers began. The Threx had submitted. The Zyrex had folded. The minor species now sought Earth's favor as though survival depended on it. And maybe it did. The Cathari archivist recorded a new entry that evening. The predator is no longer cloaked. She walks the halls with soft shoes and sharp eyes. The others see her now. But too late. The blood was drawn long ago. The throat offered. And Earth, ever so polite, waited until the prey leaned in. In a quiet corner of the Concord station, Evelyn sat alone, reviewing new proposals, peace terms, trade deals, even cultural summits. She approved none yet. Instead, she pulled a small, worn photograph from her jacket pocket. 12 faces. All smiling. Marines. Scientists. Brothers. Daughters. Dead. She held the picture for a long time. Not with grief. With clarity. Then she placed it back, sipped her tea, and began drafting the final part of the plan. She knew the galaxy was watching now. It was time to teach it why humans always smile before they strike. The diplomatic dais was unusually quiet. For once, no preening introductions, no pre-session gossip disguised as procedural motions. Delegates kept their eyes forward. Hands still. Jaws tight. Something unspoken pressed down on them, heavy as gravity. Everyone knew Earth was about to speak again. Everyone knew it would change things. Ambassador Evelyn Sharp stood in the same spot she always did, center stage, dead calm, but the context had shifted. Her silhouette against the central light bore weight now. No longer the object of ridicule, she was now the fulcrum around which fear, awe and anticipation pivoted. She didn't look any different. Navy blue suit. Wrist calm. Mild, pleasant expression. But perception had caught up with reality. The galaxy saw her for what she was now. A diplomat built like a warhead. She didn't begin with threats. "Peace," Evelyn said simply. "Let's talk about it." Murmurs flickered through the crowd. Nervous ones. The word didn't soothe anymore. Not when she said it. "Peace is not the absence of war," she continued. "It's the result of good deterrence. Predictable justice. Mutual discomfort. It's what happens when every party at the table has something to lose, and no one wants to test who loses more." A few species nodded. Some flinched. "We are human," Evelyn said, voice softening. "And we are not the galaxy's most advanced species. Not the strongest. Not the oldest. But we are the most dangerous. Not because of our weapons or our ships, or even our tactics, but because we are the only species in this room who have had to earn peace at every step of our history." She paused. "We built civilizations beside volcanoes. We farmed deserts. We survived ice ages, atom bombs, and internet comment sections. We made peace not because it was easy, but because we understood the price of not having it." Laughter stirred. Brief, nervous. Some found humor in the absurdity. Others simply wanted to believe there was still space for levity. Evelyn let it sit just long enough before continuing. "We smile because it's polite. But also because we are imagining 50 different ways to kill you with what's on the table. Forks, pens, a coffee mug. Not because we want to, but because history taught us it's irresponsible not to be prepared." She gestured lightly, and the lights dimmed. A new projection flickered into view. Earth's forces. But not ships this time. Not weapons. Logistics. Humanity's soft power, supply chains that could pivot overnight. Humanitarian aid that arrived faster than most empires could deploy a scout ship. Medicine delivered to plague worlds before the distress calls had finished broadcasting. A web of benevolent capability. And the subtle promise of denial to those who chose enmity instead. "This is our new proposition," Evelyn said. "Not alliances based on fear. Not conquest wrapped in trade. But conditional peace. With teeth." An older Xyrix clicked nervously. "Conditional?" "Yes," she replied, turning to face the room more fully. "Earth will extend full non-aggression protections, humanitarian assistance, and shared technologies, but only to species that publicly affirm the Geneva Concords, which, starting today, are no longer just a relic of our history. They're a requirement. The Geneva Concords, a bundle of ancient Earth laws governing wartime behavior. The words had no interstellar authority. Until now. The projection shifted again. Species names appeared, scrolling. Some highlighted. Some grayed out. A scorecard of morality, drawn in blood and treaties. Threx. Pending. Xyrix. Probationary. Dozens of lesser-known names, marked for review. One delegate, a thin-limbed quadruped with bioluminescent eyelids, leaned forward. "You're weaponizing diplomacy." Evelyn smiled again, almost gently. "I'm standardizing consequences." The chamber erupted into debate. Furious, frightened, fascinated. But they didn't walk out. Because even the most indignant among them wanted a spot on the list. Back at the Earth Embassy, Evelyn stood before the map again. The galaxy no longer looked like a series of constellations. It looked like a chessboard. She moved pieces with her eyes alone. Reza entered, silent, carrying a sealed case. She nodded at him. "It's time." "Confirmation just came through," he said. "They've agreed to the summit. Threx, Xyrix, even the Choric Coalition." "Any holdouts?" He hesitated. "The airlocks are posturing, but they're stalling. They're trying to appear independent while watching everyone else surrender with dignity." Evelyn exhaled. "Let them stall. Pride's a slow poison." She opened the case. Inside, a simple device. A communicator. Not for interstellar messages, but for planetary broadcasts. It was old tech. Deliberate. What's the message? Reza asked. Evelyn stared at it for a moment, then pressed the key. Play the final directive, she said. The message she recorded was brief, clinical, and devastating. To the species still considering hostility toward Earth, we will not attack you. We will not conquer you. We will simply isolate you. Economically, digitally, politically. We will erase your presence from our supply lines, our communication channels, and our collective trust. You will still exist. But not in a way that matters. Reza watched her. You think they'll fold? No, she said. I think they'll beg. And some did. Within the week, 3 minor powers issued public apologies. Not to save face, they had none left, but to secure trade routes. Others followed. The airlocks finally offered what they called a neutral statement of reconciliation, which Evelyn accepted with all the grace of a cat letting a mouse go out of sheer boredom. But not everyone surrendered. The Kellery Mining Guild, once a minor player known more for their stubbornness than their strength, launched a counter-campaign. They accused Earth of soft tyranny, of manipulating the Council, of smiling while holding a knife. They weren't wrong. But they underestimated how well humans played public opinion. Evelyn appeared on a live broadcast a week later. No grand declarations. Just her, seated in front of a fireplace, speaking plainly. My father taught me to fix things. My mother taught me to forgive. But both of them taught me to never walk away from someone who spit on my friends and called it rain. Then she smiled. To the Kellery, your fleets are now grounded in every major trade hub. Your communications are rerouted. Your markets are saturated with synthetic substitutes for your minerals. You are not at war. You are simply ignored. It took 6 days for the Kellery to dissolve their leadership council. Earth didn't fire a single shot. In the Concord chamber, Evelyn stood once more. This time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a row of representatives, not humans. Zyrex, Kothari, even a few Threks. Not allies. Witnesses. Co-signers. We do not demand submission, Evelyn said. We offer standards. Join them, and you gain partnership. Ignore them, and you gain irrelevance. Someone from the crowd shouted. You think you're better than us? She looked directly at the speaker. No, she said. I think we've been worse than you. And we learn from it. The silence that followed was not quiet. It was reverent. Because every species in the room had blood on its hands. But only humans weaponized guilt as strategy. Only humans made survival into an art form. Only humans could wrap power in politeness, diplomacy in iron, and vengeance in velvet. As the chamber adjourned, the Council of Five, once Earth's most vocal blockers, quietly submitted their own endorsement of the Geneva Concords. No press release. Just signatures. They had seen what Earth was now. The velvet guillotine had a name, and it smiled when it cut. Outside, in the quiet of her personal quarters, Evelyn sat once more by herself. She poured tea. No briefings. No holograms. Just steam and silence. Reza entered, tentative. It's done, he said. Evelyn stirred her tea slowly. It's never done. But it's quiet, for now. He hesitated. I have to ask, why didn't we just strike back harder? After the Marines. After Vanta. She looked at him then, something heavier than grief behind her eyes. Because peace isn't the absence of war, Reza. It's the shadow it casts. He nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of it. Outside the orbital window, Earth hung in the distance. Small. Blue. Quiet. But now the galaxy knew what it had never dared guess. It wasn't just alive. It was awake.